first got to Tallahassee, obviously when you ran, you were thinking, this is good. We're going to get in there. We're going to fight the fight. We're going to fight the Republicans. And it's sad to me to see like that your firsthand experience is basically confirming and validating what I've suspected to be true, which is Tallahassee is a lost cause.
At this point, it was interesting. I'll share this with you. I was asked to recruit Black women to run for certain seats in the state house. And I feel like, anyone who knows me knows how I feel about Black women. I also was going to be very honest and transparent about my experience. I, was like, I can't just tell someone you need to run. And then they're like, how is it? And there's a video of me crying on the House floor like 2 days later because of the bills that are being passed. And so I talked about how it can be violent, and especially to people of color, especially to LGBTQ folks, especially to women, especially to anyone that's not a white, cis, heterosexual man, right? Republican man, right? And I got reprimanded by folks. Don't tell people that, we need them to. I was like, no, I think you need to tell people the truth, that if they want to run, it's noble and it's amazing and we need good people, but you need to let people know what they're walking into. We need to let people know this is really what we're dealing with, because I think when you let people know what we're dealing with, we understand the urgency of the moment. We understand like, oh, okay, this is not just like it's Tallahassee and it's bad and Republicans control it, but really what we're dealing with here in the state of Florida. And I think that if people had a real understanding about that and kind of the uckiness and the grossness of some of the legislation and all of the things in these backroom deals, that there would be more of an urgency, hopefully more of an urgency in the Democratic Party to make sure that we're doing everything that we can. Because guess what, y'all? As much as we want to say, oh, we cannot organize them and the Democrats cannot organize, you cannot organize systemic voter suppression. You can't do that. You cannot organize institutional racism. You can't do that. Like, you cannot organize, homophobia and misogyny and all of those things. So we have to have a party that's very real and clear about what's happening in Tallahassee. And then we have an urgency behind actually doing a strategy that's for real, that we can not only flip the state, but make sure that we have good folks in office.
That is a great segue to the lovely lady who we were hoping was going to run for governor, but probably thought better of it and will do it at a later date. And that, of course, is Anna Eskamani.
Yes. Our friend Anna Eskamani.
My friend, yes.
Really made a hell of a difference. And I do think that what she is doing is very smart. She is really doing what is necessary, but we need a bunch of the Anna Eskamanis, if you will, to be duplicated all throughout the state. The infrastructure in many ways is what needs to change. And that's something that I think is a very good segue into what we believe. And it's one of the reasons why our show is called Generational Change. There is, with all due respect, at least a generation's worth of Democrats that simply don't want to pass the baton. They do not want to change things. They do not want to see evolution happen. We're not going to talk about her. You know who our congressional representative is in Broward. That's one of several. We really have this problem of the evolution of the party that must happen, because if it doesn't happen, Florida is not going to be a shade of red state. It is a red state, and it will only get worse. So your thoughts on the evolution of the party at this, just overall in terms of the state level infrastructure that has to change?
I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, for me, even running in this race, I was told to wait my turn. I was told, who do you think you are? And this is by former electeds. I walked into a fundraiser, and before I could even say hello, one particular person was like, "I'm team such and such," and I'm like, "Hi, how are you? I'm well. Good to see you." I'm doing well. Like, did you get here safely? Like, you're not, being affected by the pandemic. And so that's the attitude. I am a Black queer woman who's a civil rights attorney who has the audacity to be out and proud, who has the audacity to be a woman of size, who has the audacity to say what's on her mind. And that is scary. And I think that because, and I'm going to say this, and I know probably some of my team is like, oh God, but I'm going to say
it.
So because we understand that there is a portion of our party that needs to have systemic racism, that needs to have proximity to white supremacy, that needs to have proximity to even Republicans in order to maintain power. There is not everybody, but there is a portion of our party. There are some folks within our party that is how they thrive. We've seen articles that have talked about this dark money that's been funneling through the party. And then some of those same people are running, campaigns and House Victory and all of those things. So to me, until we get real serious about having a real conversation about it. And that's why I appreciate the work that Anna Eskamani is doing. But there are Black women that have been doing this work for a long time. Folks like Jasmine Burney Clark, folks like Jasmine Rogers and Maya Brown and Tessa and all those other I like that hashtag, all those other,
Yeah, that's good.
all
That's
these
really
other,
good.
all these other folks that have been doing this work and who were even in 2020 during the primary and the general election sounding the alarm that we are in trouble. But because we're not having those real conversations and we're not, uplifting voices of folks who are in the communities that need us the most, we're just like, oh, well, we're just going to kind of keep things the same way. We have folks developing 67 county strategies. We're not going to do that. We're just going to, let, some consultant from somewhere else who's never lived in Florida, come and tell us what to do. And that's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing folks like Anna Eskamani or folks like Jasmine Burney Clark or folks like who are members of the Alliance saying, like, listen, if the establishment's not going to listen to us and they're not going to actually give us the resources, we will organize outside of you.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, the difference in the people that are actually leading the party versus the people that would better represent the party. And look, nothing is plainer than the fact that the party essentially has a Republican in charge of it right now at the state level. We know why that person was placed there. We know who put that person there. We know where the money comes from. And so you definitely strike me as someone I've been to, and I'm sure you've been to the state events, and they're always sponsored by things like Walmart and Big Sugar, which should not be something that you're seeing at a Democratic convention at the state party level, but we do. And until they stop being in bed with all the same corporations that the Republicans are in bed with, they're all serving the same master. So we, as people that are non-corporate people or that are stuck in that party, are sort of like flailing around trying to figure out, well, what do we do? Because the party doesn't really represent us, but yet that's the party we're in. And we're just sort of stuck. And this is why I personally will not give any money to the state party, because they're taking money from corporate special interests. And we pride ourselves here on not doing that. So if I were to support them, then I've got people supporting me based on us trying to transform politics into service. But then my money is going to a state party that takes corporate money. So we need to get rid of that as our party and actually be a real, that's the only way this is going to change.
I know, I 100% agree. And I was actually texting with a good friend of mine, Congressman Mondaire Jones, and we were having a conversation about corporate money. And, and he was like, people take this corporate money and not realizing that even when you're thinking about in these races, it doesn't make that big of a difference because it's really the grassroots people that really funnel it. And then I know for me, for example, it has been progressive organizations like Way to Lead, DFA, other organizations that have, kind of gotten my message out as well. And then just people knowing me in the community. And, I think for me, that is different. The difference between me and even my primary opponents that, I first off, I'm just gonna be like, and there's y'all, there's no other way I can be just but me. First of all, I'm not in love with being elected. That some people are like, well, the next thing for me is like, I'm gonna do this, and that. I'm literally a woman on this mission. I'm a woman that is about, I'm gonna give y'all maybe a good 10 years in Congress, if that. I want to build a bench that's real, build a bench that has folks that look like me, that move like me, that show up like me. And that are able to come along. This is not about a dynasty. This is not about because, my grandfather was, in Congress, or I worked for Obama, or all of those things that some of my other primary opponents are touting. It is literally, we're in a moment where we have to decide who we're going to be. We're in a moment where we have to make sure that we have folks who can fight, and that's the work that I've done. And so for me, it is very frustrating when I read articles and I'm reading that people are out here screaming people over profits and all of these kinds of things, but they're taking dark money. It is frustrating because, and then you wonder why our party is still the same, and not just even on the state level, but even on a national level. You have Kristen Sinema, who's literally holding things up because she's going to get a check from pharmaceutical. It just doesn't have to be this way. It
Yeah.
literally doesn't have to be this way. And it is about when you are serving people, it is about that service. And it's highly frustrating.
You were the first person I've heard talk about getting that job, the job of being in Congress, as I always sort of talked about it. It's so funny. No, I've never heard any other candidate talk about it in the same way. Like, that's exactly how I felt about it. Like, I do not want to be here. I do not want to be doing this. But unfortunately, I can, and it's a privilege that I can do so. And so I'm willing to do this. But this is not a life for me. Like that's really, and I think people need to support those candidates. I do.
Thank you.
I think that's the most important thing. What does your primary field look like?
So right now it's myself, and it is State Representative Ben Diamond, who represents the district over from me, District 68, and it is Eric Lynn. He's a former Obama administration official. So it's right now it's two white men and myself, and
well, good. Let it stay that way.
That could actually be a pretty big advantage to you.
No, I think it is. I do. I think demographically, it's unfortunate that we have to have these strategic conversations about demographics, but the reality is it matters. We know that in our district that having a Jewish last name helps. We know that in Miami-Dade, if you have a Latino surname, you have a better chance. And that's just the reality. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but it's true. And the fact that you're running against two white sounding milquetoast sounding people sounds like that is an advantage for you.
Yeah, and here's the thing: I have nothing bad to say about them. They're great people in their own right. And they're running for whatever reasons that they believe that they should run. But for me, like I said, this is really, I think, just we're in a defining moment, and I will tell you the reason I even ran for my House seat. Attorney Ben Crump was like, "So there's a seat that's open." I'm like, really. But then as I kind of was looking at the field, I was like, is this who the people have to choose from? And that's why I got into this race as well. Is this who the people have to choose from? Things that we've already had, things that have already been the same, or so maybe someone like myself who's more representative of our district, more representative of our community, and really more representative where I think that our country wants to go and needs to go, but for some of these forces that we talked about earlier. And that's why I got in, and I really believe that we have a message that can transcend. And I think that when you think of Black candidates, I was told, well, this is a primarily white district. Well, you're a Black woman. What do you think? But we're seeing Black and brown, candidates not only being able to run, but to win in areas where they, traditionally haven't been able to win. And I think that, you have to really think about, when you're thinking about that, it's that we have stories that are able to transcend race, able to transcend gender, able to transcend gender identity, all of those things. And so that's sort of the things that, kind of I was thinking about, even when we're talking about the strategic part of like, does this make sense to run?
Well, yeah. And a lot of people don't. Peter and I talk about that all the time. Like, people don't think it through. They only think, oh, I want this. They don't really think, am I right for it? Is the district right? Like, there is a thought process that has to go into this. And I think you're right. And I think that you are the perfect person for that job.
And the last thing to conclude with, Michele, and guys, MichelleForFlorida.com, please check it out. Remember,
share the love.
Phone banking, text banking, donating. And if you are in the I-4 corridor area, Orlando Metro, Tampa, Sarasota, even Fort Myers, head on up. Door knocking is essential. That is how you're going to win a primary like this.
I might even come knock doors for you.
Oh,
Please,
very
I
good.
will welcome. I will welcome it.
I might even come knock doors for you. And guys, but in all fairness, Florida's primary is August, and so it definitely doesn't get the priority status. Like we have to go in chronological order of priority. But I think you're awesome, so I appreciate you coming
Is it,
on very much.
and Michelle, just so we know, because this is a seat that Charlie Chris is vacating. So is there going to be a special election? How is this
No.
going to work?
So I'm finishing my entire term in the state house. And then so instead of just refiling for my state house seat, I filed for Congress. So it'll be a regular primary in August 2022 and then the
Yeah.
general in November.
If you can talk about, lastly, we talk about all the time. One of the things that, we obviously know, again, like I said, we don't have to get into our Congresswoman. We know what the issues are there. Talk about the power of the federal seat and what that could mean in terms of building local infrastructure. There is so much power that the federal seat provides you with that we don't see anybody really take advantage of. But if you want to make sure, Broward County, the fourth bluest county based on population in the United States, we have not made quorum with the DEC in over 4 years. As far as I'm concerned, that's just a reflection of bad leadership and bad organizing. But if somebody who had the power of a federal seat was actually working to build that infrastructure, let's say in Pinellas, in Hillsborough, and so on, if you could talk about the impact that you would be looking to make in terms of changing that infrastructure at the state level in Florida, that is something that never really gets talked about, but I think is immensely important. Your thoughts on
100%, and that's kind of to the point that I said about building a bench. So for me, it really comes down to continuing the work that I'm already doing, because really this is like literally, and I know, like Candace said, it's not about me, but it really is not about me. It really is making sure that not only our local party is empowered, but local candidates are empowered, that we're building political power that is diverse. We're building political power that looks and is representative of the communities in which we live, making sure that we're sending, not just like, oh, well, it's a Democrat in name only, but a Democrat that actually is working for, progressive values to Tallahassee. Also, I think that to me, when we're even thinking about voting, and this is the thing that's so frustrating about the federal government, before we can even get to all the things we want to see, we got to be able to vote, y'all. We got to be able to make sure we can access the ballot. And when I talk about who we're going to be, and we have to make that decision about who we're going to be, we have to make the decision of we're going to be a nation that's going to obstruct people's access to the ballot, that's going to suppress the vote, or if we're going to finally, once and for all, allow unobstructed access to the ballot. Because if we don't have that unobstructed access to the ballot, I can start building the bench and doing all these things that I want to do, but the people can't vote. The people can't vote.
Yeah.
To get vote. And so that's the thing. We can talk about a woman's right to choose and racial justice and equity and all of those things that we really dream of. But if people can't even get to the doggone ballot and vote and know that their vote is going to count, and know that like some maniac is not going to be out here screaming, this, that, and the third, this is a rigged election, which is so funny to hear white folks say it's rigged election. I mean, like, like, can we have that conversation, right?
That's rich. That's
Yeah,
so funny.
let's talk about redlining and blockbusting and all the other.
Right, when you
things
see
that
white men
doesn't
talking
exist.
about fixed elections, it is
Yeah.
really funny.
It is hilarious. I'm like, yo, we're really gonna have this conversation. And I remember I went on like my Facebook memories, and apparently I had like did a Facebook status a lot, like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm like, still rich, still here, we're still here. But no, I mean, I think that those are the things that are important, and that's why I'm running. I mean, I am, like I said, I'm on a mission. I'm really believe that the values that we have talked about and the values that y'all talk about, they're not just like a pie in the sky. Yes, we have to be practical about how we can get things done. I get it. Like, we have to work with people and all of those things. Like, I get that. I have worked with Republicans. I have passed bills with Republicans. That's why I've been able to get things done in Tallahassee. But I also believe that we have to make sure that we are swinging for the fences, because that world that we believe to be equitable and folks can thrive actually can happen. We just have to have the political will. And I'll leave you with this. My same friend, Congressman Mondier Jones, he tweeted this, and it like stabbed me in the heart. He said, for the cost of one aircraft carrier, we could eliminate homelessness in the United States. And it literally, and it brings me to tears. I get choked up because it's like, we literally just have to have the political will to do what's right and to do what's honorable and to do the things that can help folks. And it's like, it's not hard. It doesn't have to be this way. And that to me is like, so you're telling me we could forego buying one aircraft carrier to make sure that people have safe housing, environmentally sound housing. Got it. Cool.
Yeah. Well, and you can look no further than those fighter jet graveyards that are out there in the western part of this country in these undisclosed locations where you've got football field lane size of never used fighter jets that we built and paid companies and contractors to build, but they never even got put into use.
Yeah.
The waste is absurd. So, you could find it anywhere, and yet pretty much all roads lead to the military industrial complex.
We are definitely grateful that you came on today.
Thank you.
And you are not a politician. You are a public servant. And
We say that as in the best possible as
and
a
that's what
compliment.
people should be striving to do. And
Thank
that is
you.
what we are hoping becomes more of the consensus, as you say, the generational change that needs to happen. And you exemplify that, Michele. Guys, MichelleForFlorida.com. Please
Check
check
it
it
out.
out. Give her a hand. And of course, it looks like we'll be heading up to the Tampa area at some point to help you knock on some
I always like an excuse to go visit the fam.
There you
Come
go.
on. Come on. All right. Take care, y'all.
Thanks,
Have
Michele.
a great day, Michele.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.